Okay, get this. We're diving into the story of Léo Major, a Canadian soldier who basically lived an action movie. We're talking two YO Distinguished Conduct Medals, one from World War II and another from Korea.
Yeah, it's incredible only 3 people in the entire British Commonwealth have earned that.
It's unbelievable. Okay, so back to World War II. D-Day, June 6, 1944. Major lands on Juno Beach with the Régiment de la Chaudière. What was it like landing on Juno?
It was rough, one of the toughest parts of D-Day. German defenses were really strong, casualties were high, Major's regiment needed every advantage they could get.
So right away, did Major do something to turn things around?
Right off the bat, within hours of landing, he helped take out a German bunker.
Wow.
Then he captures some enemy soldiers, which already takes some guts.
Hmm.
But then get this, he captures an entire German half-track all by himself.
Hold on, he captured a vehicle alone?
And this is where it gets interesting. It wasn't just any vehicle. It was full of communication equipment and codes. Super valuable intelligence for the Allies.
Hmm.
It wasn't just bravery. He was already showing he could think tactically.
So he's making smart moves right from the start. But his story takes a pretty wild turn, right? Just a few days later.
Yeah, just a few days after. Major's in a firefight with an SS patrol, kills 4 of them. But then a phosphorus grenade explodes near him and, well, he loses an eye.
He loses an eye, and he keeps fighting.
You wouldn't believe it, he refused to be evacuated. Said he only needed one eye to be a scout and sniper. And there's this story, maybe a legend, that even joked about it, said he looked like a pirate.
That's incredible. That kind of resilience, maybe dark humor, maybe that's what gets you through something like that.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't just physical strength. It was a mental toughness that's really impressive. And think about it, that kind of grit is what helped turn the tide of the war. Every soldier mattered.
Makes you think. Okay, so he's already a hero at this point, but this is just the beginning for him, right?
Oh yeah, there's so much more to come. Later that same year, Battle of the Scheldt, Major does something unbelievable.
The Battle of the Scheldt, remind me why that one was important.
The Allies needed to open up the port of Antwerp for supplies. But the Germans were dug in along the Scheldt. Really important battle.
So what does Major do?
He captures 93 German soldiers.
Wait, 93? By himself? Was he just that good?
Well, it's debated. Some historians think maybe the story's been exaggerated a bit, through retellings. There isn't any official record of a Distinguished Conduct Medal nomination for that.
So maybe a little bit of war story, legend making.
Right. But here's what's undeniable. What he did during the liberation of Zwolle in April of 45.
This is where he liberates the entire city, right? Pretty much on his own.
Yeah, but it's more nuanced than that. Remember, the Allies are pushing into the Netherlands. Zwolle was a strategically important city. But they didn't want too much damage, especially civilian casualties, if they had to fight their way in.
So they wanted to take the city back, but without a bloodbath. Makes sense. So how did Major get involved?
He and a friend, Corporal Wilfred Arsenal, they volunteered to go into Zwolle on a recon mission. They were just supposed to get information so the Allies could plan a smarter attack. In and out, minimal risk. But things don't always go to plan, do they?
I have a feeling this is where things go wrong.
Arsenal is killed, shot by the Germans. This is the turning point. Think about it. You've just lost your friend. You're alone, deep in enemy territory. What would you do? Most would turn back. Not Major.
He didn't give up, even after losing his friend.
Not at all. In fact, he goes and does something that, well, makes him a legend. He decided he wasn't just going to scout. He was going to liberate the whole city himself.
Hold on, he decides to take on an entire city solo. He was doing this to prevent the Allied attack, right?
Exactly. He knew if the Allies attacked, there would be a ton of casualties, soldiers, and civilians. He had to get the Germans out of Zwolle without a huge fight.
And he succeeded.
He did. Spent the whole night running around Zwolle, attacking patrols, setting diversions, made the Germans think they were facing a huge force. A one-man show of chaos.
How did he fool a whole army like that?
He was smart. Used captured German weapons, took prisoners, even started fires to confuse them. Psychological warfare, plain and simple. He used their fear against them, made them think they were totally outmatched.
That's brilliant. So by morning, the Germans are gone, cities liberated, all thanks to this one incredibly brave and clever soldier.
Exactly. And he was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal for his actions in Zwolle. Solidified his place in military history. But even with this incredible story, there are historians who believe the Germans were already pulling back, and Major was really good at seeing that opportunity.
So maybe less Rambo and more strategic genius?
You could say that. But even if that's true, it doesn't really take away from what he did, does it? He risked his life, showed initiative, and ultimately helped liberate a city. What do you think? Is it even more impressive if he was that smart that he outsmarted them?
Honestly, yeah. It takes guts and brains to walk into that situation and pull that off.
I agree. And here's the thing. After Zwolle, you'd think, okay, that's enough. Time to relax. He went back to being a pipe fitter, back to a normal life.
You figure that's gotta be enough excitement for one lifetime, but I have a feeling it wasn't the end for him.
Not even close. Korea happened.
He goes back to war. Tell me about it.
Korean War breaks out. Major is called back to service. This time, he joins the Royal 22E Regiment, the Van Deus.
I'm guessing he ends up back in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah. This time, it's the battle for Hill 355, Little Gibraltar, a key position.
Why was that hill so important?
The Chinese were absolutely set on taking it. They launched this massive attack, pushed the Americans back. Things were not looking good for the UN forces. This is where Major and his scout and sniper team come in.
I remember reading something about this. They were wearing running shoes, right?
Yeah, they had to move quietly and quickly. They were infiltrating to retake a position on Hill 227, which was important for taking back Hill 355. Every detail mattered.
Okay, so it's November 1951. Major and his 18-man team, they're outnumbered, trying to hold this position. What happened?
For 3 days, they held Hill 227. Wave after wave of Chinese attacks. They were under constant fire, running out of supplies, but they wouldn't give up.
3 days. That's incredible.
It really is. There's a quote from the mortar platoon commander who was helping them. He said, "Major was an audacious man, not satisfied with the proximity of my barrage, and asks to bring it closer."
He asked for the mortar fire to be closer to his own position. That's fearless. So that's what gets him the second Distinguished Conduct Medal.
That's it. Holding Hill 227 was an incredible display of bravery and tactical skill. He got a bar to his DCM, making him one of the most decorated Canadian soldiers ever.
2 Distinguished Conduct Medals, one in each of the major wars he fought in, and there's still more to his story.
Oh, absolutely. We talked about what he did, but what about the man himself? What made him tick?
All right, I'm all ears. Let's dive in.
Great, because Léo Major was more than just a soldier. He was a complicated and interesting guy. To really understand him, we need to go beyond the battlefield. He was a tough soldier for sure.
Yeah.
But when you really dig in, Léo Major was a man of contradictions.
In what way?
He was this tough-as-nails soldier, definitely willing to bend the rules, defy authority when he thought he had to.
Sounds like a bit of a rebel.
Yeah, he was. But he was also deeply loyal to his friends, his family, and apparently he had a really good sense of humor.
Yeah, that comment about looking like a pirate after he lost his eye, that takes a certain personality.
Exactly. And remember the story about refusing his first Distinguished Conduct Medal?
Wait, he refused a medal. Why would he do that?
The story goes that he didn't think Field Marshal Montgomery was a good leader. Montgomery was supposed to give him the medal.
So he just refused to take it.
Yeah, he refused to accept it from him. Pretty gutsy move.
Yeah, that takes some serious guts, especially in the military. He really did things his own way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Didn't just blindly follow orders. Especially if he thought they were wrong or if they came from someone he didn't respect.
Right. I read he had a pretty rough childhood, right? His father was really hard on him, called him names. Maybe that's part of what drove him.
He makes you wonder, right? Like he always had to prove himself, show everyone he was tough. And then he joins the army at 19. World War II breaks out. Spends his formative years in the most intense situation imaginable. That's got to shape you.
No kidding. So he got married during all of this, right?
Yeah, 1951,
Mhm.
right in the middle of it all. Married Pauline de Croiselle. They had 4 kids, eventually 5 grandkids.
It's amazing to me that he could be this warrior and then also a husband and a father.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the different sides of people. This fearless soldier, but also capable of deep love and commitment. And from what I've read, after Korea, he went back to being a pipe fitter, back to a normal life. Shows you how adaptable he was.
It's like he had this whole range. Fighter, strategist, family man. I wonder what it was like to serve with him.
It had to be intense. I've read accounts from other soldiers. They talk about him like he was almost superhuman, moving in the dark, staying calm under fire, a natural leader.
It's easy to focus on the action, the hero stuff, but I keep thinking about his legacy. How should we remember Léo Major?
It's a good question. On the one hand, you have the official stuff, medals, citations, all that recognizes his bravery, his contributions.
But it feels like there's more to it than that. It's about what he represents.
Exactly. It's about his courage, Not just physical courage, but facing doubt, facing really tough situations, and resourcefulness, thinking outside the box. That's what sticks with you.
You mentioned before that some historians think he took advantage of the Germans retreating in Zwolle. Maybe he outsmarted them more than straight up fought them, but honestly, that makes it even more impressive to me.
I agree. Why do you think so?
To realize the enemy is already running, to have the guts to walk in there alone and basically bluff your way to victory, that's something else. He won without having to fight a battle.
You're right. It wasn't just brute force. It was understanding the situation, using his brain. And to me, it highlights another side of him, his commitment to minimizing casualties.
Yeah, he wasn't just trying to win at all costs. He wanted to save lives.
Think about it. What he did in Zwolle probably saved a lot of lives, prevented the bombing. And even in Korea, when he was calling in those mortars so close, he was doing it to avoid a bigger, worse fight.
It seems like he was always looking for a way to avoid bloodshed, even when he was in the middle of a battle. That's a pretty incredible quality.
It is. Really speaks to his humanity, his understanding of the real cost of war.
It also makes his story feel relevant today. In a world where there's so much conflict, Léo Major shows us that there might be other ways.
He shows us that courage can be more than just physical strength. It's about thinking strategically, being willing to do things differently. He was a true innovator, even on the battlefield.
So what are the main things we should take away from Léo Major's story? What do you hope people will remember?
I hope they remember that one person can make a difference, even when things seem impossible. It's about courage, not just when facing danger, but facing doubt, facing the urge to give up.
It's that strength we all have inside, the ability to keep going, even when it's tough.
And it's about using your skills, your own unique perspective to find solutions. Maybe it's even about changing how we think about what a hero is.
What do you mean?
We think of heroes as these perfect, larger-than-life figures. But Léo Major was complicated. He was stubborn, rebellious. But that's what makes his story so interesting, so human.
It shows us that heroism isn't about being perfect. It's about doing what you think is right, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about taking on an entire city by yourself with just a gun and a whole lot of determination.
Yeah.
That was Léo Major.
A true original. Defied the odds and changed history. Never backed down from a challenge. Never compromised.
But you know, what strikes me is that even with all those incredible stories, his legacy goes beyond the battlefields.
What do you mean?
He was born in the U.S., raised in Canada, fighting for freedom in Europe and Korea. It's about shared responsibility, standing up for what's right, no matter where it's happening.
It reminds us that we're all connected, that we have to look out for each other.
Exactly. And what I find really interesting is how his story is remembered in different parts of the world. He's a Canadian hero, but people in the Netherlands celebrate him too, especially in Zwolle.
It shows you the impact he had, how he touched people's lives.
And it's not just about being a soldier. There are lessons in his story for all of us.
Yeah, like what?
What do you think are some of the key takeaways from Léo Major?
Well, his resilience. He faced so much adversity, losing his eye, the death of his friend. But he never gave up. That's a lesson for anyone facing any kind of challenge.
It's about that inner strength we all have, knowing how to use it, and how to use those tough experiences to become stronger.
Exactly. And he was so adaptable, always facing something new, something unexpected. But he always thought on his feet, found creative solutions.
He turned disadvantages into advantages. That's a skill everyone needs.
Absolutely. And he wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, to question things.
He trusted his gut, even when people might have thought he was crazy.
He was a true individual, and I think that's something we should all try to hold on to, that ability to think for ourselves.
I agree. And for me, the most important thing, the thing I hope people will remember, is that you don't have to be famous to be a hero. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
It's about all those small moments where you make a choice to stand up for something, to help someone.
That's the real legacy of Léo Major.
It's a powerful message.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Léo Major, what are your final thoughts for our listeners? What should they take away from all of this?
I hope they'll remember that courage comes in many forms, and that even the most incredible things start with a single step. Don't underestimate yourself.
And don't forget the people who came before us, who showed us what it means to be brave and never give up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's like his story just goes beyond borders, you know? He's a Canadian hero, but he's celebrated in the Netherlands, too. Especially in Zwolle, they named a street after him. Léo Major, a street named after the guy who liberated your city. That's powerful.
It really is. And it's not just about big battles or being a soldier. His story has lessons for everyone, even today.
Yeah, what resonates with you?
That resilience.
Yeah.
Think about everything he went through, losing his eye, seeing his friend die. It's hard to imagine. But he never gave up. He kept going.
Yeah, he could have just walked away at any point, but he didn't. And it's not just about surviving those tough times, it's about using those experiences to make yourself stronger. He was always adapting, thinking on his feet, coming up with solutions that nobody else saw.
He had a real talent for turning a bad situation around.
Hmm.
Like when he used those captured German weapons or when he bluffed his way through Zwolle, he was always thinking, okay, what can I do with this? That's a skill we could all use, I think.
Absolutely. And he wasn't afraid to challenge the rules, to question authority.
He trusted his gut, even when it meant going against everyone else. A true individual.
That's something we could all learn from, that ability to think for ourselves, not just follow the crowd.
For sure. But to me, the biggest takeaway from Leo Major's story is that being a hero isn't about being famous. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's those everyday choices, when you decide to stand up for something you believe in or to help someone who needs it. Those are the things that matter.
Those are the things that make a difference. And that's what makes his story so inspiring. It shows us that we all have the potential to do great things. We all have that hero inside us.
That's a powerful message. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Leo Major, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I want them to remember that courage comes in many forms, and that even the most amazing achievements, they all start with a single step. You have the power to make a difference. Don't forget that.
And never forget the people who came before us, the ones who showed us what it means to be brave, to never give up. Leo Major was one of those people. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into this incredible life.